We are the Church of the Larger Fellowship, the Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love.
For over 85 years, the ministries of the Church of the Larger Fellowship have circled the globe and crossed the walls of prisons. We are a spiritual lifeline for our over 2,000 members in prison, who are also connected to individual Unitarian Universalists through our letter writing ministry.
In our online community, we offer weekly worship, classes, and groups. Our monthly magazine, Quest, supports the spiritual lives of thousands around the globe. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed even from a distance.
We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship.
We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of the Voices of Unitarian Universalism, known affectionately as The View.
The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective.
Since 2013, we have gathered every Thursday from September to June to welcome guests from around the world.
Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond.
We hope that today's show inspires you. We hope it builds your faith and gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life.
Welcome to The View.
Oh, greetings, beloved View viewers, Voo-Vooers. It is so good to be here in the land of the View with you today. I'm the Reverend Dr. Michael Tino, half of the lead ministry team of your Church of the Larger Fellowship, this Unitarian Universalist congregation without borders or walls. This congregation whose love stretches all around the world and through the walls of prison cells. It's good to be here. I'm joining you, as usual, from the land of the Kitchewan, Wappinger, and Munsee Lenape peoples, known today as Peekskill, New York, on the Hudson River, about 35 miles north of New York City. And it is a dreary, cold, rainy spring day. It was 80 degrees here yesterday, and it's like 40 and raining today. And if a flake of snow falls from the sky this afternoon, as there is the possibility of happening, I might just have a nervous breakdown, because I knew it was fake spring, y'all. I knew it was fake spring, but like I'm done with the white stuff for the season, because my crocuses are blooming. There are bees that have emerged from their nests in the ground that are feeding on the crocuses in my garden, and no one needs 40 degrees and wet slushy snow. No, not the bees, not the crocuses, not my soul. No one needs that. No one. It is not needed. It is not needed, and it will, if it happens, I don't even know. Dante Hilliard, how are you today?
I'm a bit tired, but I'm pretty good. Lots of late nights these days, finishing up this doctoral work, but it is good to be here at The View. For those who may not have met me or know me, I am the Reverend Dante Hilliard. I am a learning fellow at the Church of the Larger Fellowship, and I am here in the land of the Council of Three Fires, also known as Chicago, Illinois. And yeah, we had the fake spring 2 days ago where it was 70 degrees. And then the next day it was 30, below 30. And today it's somewhere not too far away from there either. So yeah. I too am done with the white stuff.
It's okay. You know what? It'll be what it'll be. And gosh, they have a last breath of cold in Texas. Says Darby. To where I was last week, and it was 87 degrees. So I that sort of temperature swing is hard. It's hard on everyone. It was 22 when my plane took off in New York, and it was 87 when my plane touched down in Austin, and my body didn't know what to do. Those of you who are regular viewers who might have come to us because of our event listings on Facebook and YouTube, who are not joining us later from the podcast, will notice that there are only two of us sitting here today, and you might have expected not only our other hosts, but also a special guest, because our special guest was named in our event listing. Bishop Vanessa Brown of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, TFAM, was scheduled to join us. To talk about radical inclusivity and the growing intersection between the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries and Unitarian Universalism, which is personified by the Reverend Dante Hilliard, whose ordination is through TFAM and who is here as a Unitarian Universalist. And Bishop Brown is a caretaker to her elderly mother who had something come up today, and she had to reschedule. And we are working to reschedule it. We're going to get Bishop Brown on the View. We are so looking forward to this conversation with Bishop Brown, and we appreciate her priorities, which is exactly where they should be.
We are sending love and light to her mother, and her family.
So prayers are being sent for Bishop Brown and her mom, and that everything works out. And she's like, yes, we will reschedule. And when she has a moment, she'll look at her calendar. That moment might be not be too, but it'll pop up. Same beautiful picture of Bishop Brown will pop up on your Facebook feed again as soon as we have rescheduled that. We have guests for 2 out of the next 3 weeks. Fantastic guests who are joining us. Next week, the Knitting Cult Lady, and in 2 weeks, the North Omaha Cat Lady. We are chock full of internet superstars here on The View. So if Bishop Brown can't come 2 weeks from today, we'll reschedule her for April, and all will be well. Again, it is in the 90s in Southern California, says Nicole. I'm not ready for the 90s yet, so okay. I don't even know how to respond to that. Like I moved to somewhere that has 4 seasons, and I love all 4 of the seasons, and I love that one of them goes away and the other one comes, which is why I'm really ready for spring right now.
If we could have some hybrid of fall spring most of the year, I would be really okay with that.
I think I could live with that, but if that were the weather all year, we would not get the colors of the trees in the fall.
Yeah, I know. We
would not get the first buds of spring flowers that require the cold of winter to join us. We would not get the blossoms of cherry trees that require the coldness of winter. So I put up with the coldness of winter and the hotness of summer because they lead to the beautiful brilliance of fall and spring.
Well, and this is why our ecosystem is not dependent on our whims and fancies. Our ecosystem knows much better what needs to happen than we do.
It is the truth.
It is.
But, you can find a place on this beautiful planet Earth that suits your whims and fancies, because, if what you like is 87 degrees every day, that's the weather in Aruba. where it is 87 degrees every day, 365 days a year. And it's a desert, so it almost never rains. It's just 87 degrees and humid, but not raining. And if that's what your body needs, it exists somewhere. And if what your body needs is 3 months with no sunlight, like there, you could go to Sweden or Greenland or Iceland or wherever it like, and it's dark. It's dark through the winter, and if that you need that, blessings to you. So.
You know, Reverend Mike, I need to say, I kind of fanboy a little bit over Bishop Brown. I don't know why. Like I had been sort of observing this woman from a distance for some time. And then one day we're on a Zoom call, and I just lost. Like I absolutely love her, and I'm so looking forward to her showing up on The View. But I was thinking, since we were going to talk about radical inclusion today, you were telling me the story of the earliest iteration of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, and I think it's fascinating. And I wonder if our audience members know that story about how we did church, before the internet as a virtual worship community.
Yeah, and I was telling that story. I'll tell it again. And actually, our history goes back farther than even the story that I told you, which is to the 19th century. And in the 19th century, there were people in the United States who were moving west, who were expanding the United States, colonizing, stealing lands from the native peoples of the plains. And
you gotta name it plainly, Reverend Michael.
I mean, there is no use in pretending that did not happen.
I love my CLF family.
That's what they were doing. That's what.
And some people were going west to try to be freer and not be dragged back into slavery and things like that.
Escaping enslavement. They were doing all sorts of things, but the population of the United States was moving west and becoming rural in the western parts, because the towns were small. They were not large cities overnight in most of that place, and so there wasn't the infrastructure in many places to support Unitarian Universalist congregations, or Unitarian or Universalist congregations, I should say, because in the 19th century it was one or the other. And so there were people who developed male ministries. One was a woman in Cincinnati who dreamed of going circuit riding and preaching to far-flung rural congregations, but because of her disabilities, she couldn't. So she founded the Unitarian Male Ministry, because the other thing that happened in this time period was that the United States introduced the Pony Express. So the United States introduced mail service, like we'd call it today snail mail, but that's the only kind of mail there was, mail service to these far-flung western towns, along routes that horses could travel, along routes that rail eventually put into place, along wagon paths all the way out west. And so she would collect worship materials and reproduce them. I have no idea how. I don't know. And mail them to people who were Unitarians, who were too far flung to be close enough to others to create a congregation. And sometimes those people came together in towns and formed congregations, and eventually the American Unitarian Association and the Western Unitarian Conference started sending ministers to those places. There's a fascinating history that they sent the women ministers out there to these like places far
The
away.
Wild Wild West.
The Wild Wild West, because they were the only people willing to go there. And so look up the Iowa Sisterhood. If you got your Googles, look up the Iowa Sisterhood, who were women ministers of what was called the Frontier at that point. But until the ministers arrived, these people were supported by male ministries. And those went on for years, and there were several. And in the 40s, the American Unitarian Association merged them all into what was known as the Church of what they called the Church of the Larger Fellowship. And they wanted especially to serve families of American GIs in the 40s, stationed overseas. So stationed largely in Europe, but also Asia, as you know, in the aftermath of World War II. The United States opened up military bases all over the world, and became a dominant colonial power. Not going to sugarcoat that nonsense either, but we had people stationed all over the world, and so the Church of the Larger Fellowship was a male ministry, MAIL ministry, and the folks in the office in Boston would create worship services and type them in on mimeograph sheets and mimeograph them and send out packets, worship packets all over the world monthly. And that was our ministry. It was ministry by mail. And it was one of the reasons why when we had incarcerated people write to us to say, can I join CLF as well? It was an easy yes, right? Because we could send, at that point, we could just send those mimeograph packets to them in prison, just like we would a family of American GIs in Germany or someone in rural North Dakota. Like they all got the same mail packets mailed to them. And that ministry has changed over the years. But the mail ministry persisted into the 90s. And it really, it still is mail to our incarcerated members today. It's still largely printed correspondence to our incarcerated members. We still offer people the opportunity to subscribe to the printed magazine Quest, though it's not the primary way that we distribute it anymore. But as new technologies emerged, we embraced each successive new technology to further our ministry, to make our ministry more accessible. And Darby is reminding us of the smell.
Absolutely.
Of mimeograph machines. She writes, anyone else having a scent memory from old mimeograph pages? Oh yes, like without a doubt. That if you ever used a mimeograph machine,
you'll never forget it.
The smell of that solvent is and the ink on one's fingers, says Nicole. Yeah.
I just I'm fascinated with this history for so many reasons. One, when people talk about it, sometimes I don't really like the language of inclusion, the way in which it's been diluted or perverted, perhaps even in a lot of spaces. But the one thing that I learned from my peers and colleagues, particularly in disability space, in disability advocacy and support spaces and disability justice spaces, was, to this notion of universal design. When you design something so that sort of, what makes it a universal design is that yes, you may be considering one particular access for one particular population, but it becomes universal design because what you will discover is that there are many other people who can benefit from that design because you're sort of drilling down. It's sort of like when we talk about getting to the core or the root of an issue, right? So the example that people would use all the time is curb cutouts, right, on the sidewalk, which for access, particularly for people with disabilities or people who use wheelchairs or other mobility devices.
Or
And yes,
pushing kids in strollers or anyone.
right, and then you discover, oh, it was great for people who use strollers. It's great for people bringing their groceries home in carts.
Right.
like there's a benefit, yeah, for anyone. And so to think about how the prison ministry was an easy response because the design, it was designed to be accessible to those who had the least access.
Yes.
And because, so even though it might have started with a focus on one particular population, because it was designed for those at the farthest edges of the margins, it had utility for other folk too, who are marginalized in a different type of way from what was normally at the center. So I'm fascinated by this history. I think it's really powerful, and it also reminds me that in Unitarian Universalism we talk about our living tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about the notion of a living tradition, what it means is you have to intentionally lean into emergence, transformation, and change with intention, so that the tradition does not go stale or obsolete. You're constantly reimagining and reshaping the tradition so that it is meeting the people at the material reality that they are living in this moment. Like, because that might have been great for this moment, and so that the fact that it is our practice to reinvent our tradition over and over is beautiful.
And that's why the Reverend Meg Riley, Minister Emerita of CLF, coined the phrase "always in beta," which is like, it's a very tech era phrase, because it's always at the, like, working out the bugs, changing things as we go stage. But it's always been what CLF has done, is like, oh, are there new technologies that make this more accessible? Are there new technologies that make this more personal? Are there new, so email came along. Like when did people start to get email? The early 90s?
Yeah.
I had an email address in college, so that was 89 when I went to college. But I could only email like anyone else I knew who was in college. I could email my friends at Harvard and my friends at but it wasn't really until the early 90s that I could actually that email became useful outside of being in college. So those were the days when email lists first came to be, and CLF had a long-standing email list that actually just shut down. CLFL email list was on the UUA's email list server for 30 years, and it just shut down, and it only shut down because the server technology was so old that it couldn't be brought up to modern security standards.
No.
And so the UUA decided that because it could not actually be updated to modern security standards, they had to shut it down. Which is fine, and I appreciate that. But they kept it going until it really could not go anymore. So CLF added an email ministry. And then, the web became a thing. And CLF added a website. and if you haven't been,
To our
beloved,
new website.
visit the brand new
Yep,
CLFU board website, because it's a thing
beautiful.
it's a thing of beauty.
It is.
Um, CLF, I will say, embraced web technology a little too heartily, to the point where we had not one or even two, but three completely different websites running parallel to one another. There's only one now, and the other web addresses all go to it. So um, we actually we had five, but that's neither here nor there. We're actually meeting this afternoon and again on Monday to discuss the future of our Spanish language website, which was a special project by the Reverend Jorge Espinel in the late 2010s, so about 8 or 9 years ago, and it's not been updated significantly since, but it still exists. It still exists, beloveds. Um, so we embraced web technology, and then it became like video conferencing technology became possible, and YouTube became a thing. And for a while, we had worship on YouTube, and YouTube has issues. So, for example, YouTube very stringently polices copyright stuff, and we have copyright permission from many artists to use their works in worship. I have a whole stack of CDs that I'm now adding to our worship library that were in the Boston office, of things that artists sent to us to say, "Oh, please use my work in your worship. You have access to my library," you know, and not minor artists either. So, Maria Barnwell, Dr. Barnwell gave us full access to the catalog of Sweet Honey in the Rocks music, for example. That's why it's in our worship as often as it is, in addition to it being beautiful. But YouTube has no idea that we actually have that permission in writing from Dr. Barnwell, so it flags it. You're using copyrighted content. So we had to tone down worship on YouTube, uh, for example. But now we do it on Zoom, and our worship archive is on the web, and it's a beautiful thing. And actually, Zoom gives us a capability to live chat with people who join us live for worship on Sundays and Mondays, which YouTube didn't. YouTube, everything had to be pre-recorded, and we just gave y'all a video. But now we can live chat with people, and we can preach live to people using the broadcast software that we use, and it's fun. And then 13 years ago, we added this talk show, The View. It was the dream of Joanna Fontaine Crawford, who was at the time a Learning Fellow. And she said, "I want to do a talk show." And they named it The View, VUU, as a joke, because they thought it would be like 6 episodes of The View, VUU, and nobody would ever notice, and nobody would ever think that like we were copying the actual, I guess it's ABC talk show. We're on episode 485, this talk show now, and it's not stopping anytime soon. And it's now the Voices of Unitarian Universalism, VUU. That's what do they call it? A retronym? Like we retrofitted an acronym into what it was already called. But I'm sure there will be some other technology that emerges. We will beam worship into your brain directly in 10 years. I don't even know. But we're always doing it differently. It is a living ministry that happens. And right now, so for example, we are seeking grant funding. This is my project this week. I'm applying for a grant to help us move the course offerings that we have, that we developed as correspondence courses, to an online medium. that more and more of our incarcerated members have access to in their prison systems. But we can also then make them modules that are available on our website to free world people, as course, if they're designed to be web-based correspondence courses. And so this would convert, well, it wouldn't convert, it would create a new curriculum of theological depth, spiritual practice, and leadership development that we can offer primarily to our incarcerated members, but also to our free world members online. Because it used to be we had to mail everything to our incarcerated members, but prison systems are now restricting physical mail and giving people access to tablets, in part because they can charge them for things on tablets, and don't get me started on that. But the particular platform that we hope to use, they charge the content providers. So we would have to come up with money to pay for putting our stuff on this platform, but they make it free to the incarcerated people. So it's a whole new world.
Yeah.
It's a whole new world, and we have to meet the new world again and again and again and again and again.
But what is ministry if we're not doing that?
That's right. Yes.
So I just and I probably have told you this before, but I rediscovered Unitarian Universalism through The View.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how The View is how I made the decision to finally officially become a Unitarian Universalist.
Because we were here being salty and spicy and
absolutely. And I was like, oh, I love it. And here I am years later, I'm sitting here as a co-host. So it's like, full circle moments. Being a part of this church and this congregation, this global virtual congregation. And as Reverend Michael knows, I'm a ritualist. I love ritualizing. I love liturgy. I love worship. And I am so appreciative of how contemplative and thoughtful and forward-leaning we are in thinking about worship. And because pluralistic worship is a hard trick to pull off.
Mm-hmm.
It is not the easiest thing, because if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it, right? It is not the easiest thing to do, but I am so impressed with how much thought and intention we put into language access and pulling on different strands of our tradition and the traditions that others bring with them alongside of Unitarian Universalism, creating space for people who may not be sure at all about where they are around questions of God and religion and the divinity, but need a space to help kind of be able to sit with that, right? And so I appreciate that we are structured in a way that our worship can be that for many, many different people.
Well, like people ask me about Unitarian Universalism all the time, and I like to say that if you have found something that you are sure is the one right answer, and everybody who disagrees with you is wrong, then find the people who agree with you and join them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? But if you are open to there being multiple answers, or you are not sure what the answer is, or you don't even know if there is an answer,
right?
Or if you are pretty confident that you could be wrong, in what you think might be the right answer, this is the place for you, because you're going to meet people who have come to different answers to the questions, and we can all bring our answers to the table, right? And what you believe about God and what I believe about God might be very different from one another, and we have to, we get this opportunity to say, oh, how is it that we both make meaning? How is it that we can come up with something that connects us both to something larger than ourselves, given those different beliefs? Or how do I experience you connecting to something that connects you to your God, and then you experience something that connects me to my God, or lack thereof, and have that be okay? And have it feed us because somebody else is getting their connection.
Yeah. I remember when I was in seminary the first time, I was studying Torah, and we were doing group study at a local temple, and I was learning about the practice of midrash, like this whole component of Judaism that is less about the sacred text and about the people sacralizing, disagreeing, and arguing about the meaning of things and the interpretation. And that too is deemed holy. And I was like, holy argumentation? Batman. I was like that. I was so excited about that. And I feel like Unitarian Universalism in its best, in its best, has sort of created a similar kind of reality for us, where we can argue about it, we can disagree, we can have, and at least I think of this way, and I hope we all do, and that is holy, that is sacred. The disagreement, it's okay, it's a part of what it means to make space for all of us. Not that we like everything, agree with everything, but that we can faithfully engage in disagreement and a sharing of ideas, and find sacredness in that practice too.
Well, and the conversation itself is holy.
Yes.
It's not just the answer that's holy.
Yes. Right. And even if I don't have I'm not even anywhere near closer to understanding what I was talking about than when I began. That's because we hold the space for mystery and new possibilities and an unknown. Before I was a Unitarian Universalist, I was a part of the United Church of Christ. And I remember when I joined the United Church of Christ, I don't know if they were just starting or maybe it was already up and running, a campaign that they called God is Still Speaking. And the slogan was like, never put a period where there should be a comma. God is still speaking.
Yes.
And I just remember that just felt so revolutionarily illuminating to me. Like it made me so proud to be a part of the United Church of Christ, because I was like, yes, God is still speaking. It's not done. It's not over.
Those of you who've been Unitarian Universalists for a while might have heard Revelation is not sealed.
Yes.
Right? Same concept with $5 words instead of $1 words.
And I thought it was a brilliant campaign, because the symbol was a big red comma, and I was just like, it was so enticing, because I was like, I had never said anything like that, but when I read it, I was like, absolutely.
And you take public transportation, and there would be ads just with a comma.
Yes.
and they would put the tagline was right, never put a period where God has put a comma.
Yeah.
But just the big red comma.
Yeah.
It was. I remember that vividly.
It was I thought it was a beautiful and smart campaign too. But that notion that none of us have all the answers, and we more likely will never have all of the answers, and that's okay. And that's okay.
It's not only okay; it's beautiful.
Yes, right? Because mystery is beautiful. Possibilities that we have yet to imagine. It's pretty beautiful. Like, the universe is ever expanding. Like, it's not fixed. It's ever shifting, ever growing, ever changing. And it is what enlivens me about this tradition. Yeah.
Well, and there's something fun, right? Okay, so in this tradition of the conversation is holy, in which, yes, is part of Judaism, but I think it's part of any living tradition. And Judaism is also a living tradition. Right? And I think that they will use that phrase to talk about the tradition of Judaism as well. It is also a living tradition.
Yes.
It's also constantly being negotiated and renegotiated with the holy and with each other and in community and in covenant. And right. So the conversation is holy. There's something fun to me, and has been since I was invited to join, to gather weekly to have a conversation on this medium. Right, and to have conversations with our viewers. And I want to say, we end our season in June, and we have a bunch of guests scheduled for the next couple weeks. But there have been times on our show when regular viewers of our show have been guests, and I put in the show chat on Facebook and YouTube the link to apply to be a guest on The View. If you want to join this conversation just for an hour, we'd love to have you. Especially if you have something interesting to say that right? If you want to talk about what it means to make accessible community, if you want to talk about humor, if you want to talk about whatever, class and Unitarian Universalism and how our attempts at radical inclusion have often failed along class lines, come have a conversation with us, because really it's the conversation that's holy.
Yes. Because I never made that connection to my fascination with Midrash and this
Well, story in my interview with the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, which I'm now the co-chair of. This is the committee that admits people into ministry as Unitarian Universalists. In my interview with them in 2006, one of the questions they gave me was, we're going to throw out the names of a bunch of religions, and we want you to tell us one thing that they have in common with Unitarian Universalism and one thing that is different.
Okay.
It was one of these. This question was not written for me or in conversation with me. It was one of the things in their bank of questions.
Right.
We don't do that anymore. But this was their question to me. And, so they have to work things out, whatever, right? So, they asked me about Islam, right? And I said, well, one thing that makes us very different is there are practices in Islam that everyone is required to do to be in community in right relationship, and there are not such practices in Unitarian Universalism, right? So, but they asked me Judaism, and I said, the thing that really makes us similar is the fact that we are a living tradition, and so are they. And it's funny. So I guess this is Michael Tino Story Hour. When I was doing my chaplaincy internship, known as clinical pastoral education, if you're a ministry geek, but I was a chaplain intern in a hospital, and I was having lunch with one of the residents, the chaplain residents, who was a Methodist, and many of the people that I was in this program with were Methodists, because Duke Divinity School, which was 8 miles up the road in Durham, we were in Chapel Hill, but Duke Divinity School is a Methodist divinity school, right? So many of the people I was in this program with were either students at or recent graduates from Duke Divinity School. So they were all Methodist. So I was having lunch one day with one of the residents who was a Methodist, and he said to me, Michael, have you ever thought about, like, if you couldn't be a minister as a Unitarian Universalist, what other denomination you would go to? He's like, because I've been thinking, like, maybe I could go to the UCC, right? Or like maybe I'd go to the Alliance of Baptists, which is a liberal Baptist denomination, right? Like maybe I'd go to this or that, whatever. It's like, have you ever thought of that? And I thought, and I'm like, boy, that's a really hard question for me, because the thing that makes me a Unitarian Universalist the most is the pluralism and the devotion to the living tradition, right? This is what made me a Unitarian Universalist too. And I'm like, and I looked at him, I'm like, I guess I would have to see if they were accepting people into Reconstructionist Judaism. Because that would be the closest I could get. Like, I would have to go through the conversion process and then apply to rabbinical school.
Yeah.
And like, it would not be an easy process. It's not like he could just like go to the UCC and say, hey, I have this Master of Divinity, I'm a Christian minister, will you take me? And they'd go, sure, or no, or whatever, because the qualifications were the same.
Yeah.
And he was like, really? And then he was stunned by this answer. And I'm like, really, honestly, if I couldn't be a Unitarian Universalist, I probably wouldn't be a minister. I probably would express my ministry through work in the community that was labeled secular.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, which is what I've been doing for the last
community. I'd still be doing social justice. I'd still be doing these things, but it would have to be through secular organizations.
Yeah.
And no one would call me a minister. I wouldn't get the title reverend.
Yeah.
But it's still, I would know that it's what I'm called to.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I oriented to my career up until 2022, when I just, was like, walked away from all of it. But it was like, this is ministry. I am companioning vulnerable people in hostile environments. I am creating formative opportunities for learning and growth and development. And, planting seeds of transformation inside of large institutions. I wasn't, ridiculous enough to think I was going to transform these institutions, but at least be able to plant seeds of transformation. And I really focused on investing in leadership development in young people, because again, when you can't change the organizations and the institutions, I decided you can invest in the leadership development of people who will come behind you.
It's so funny you say that, Dante, because my call to the ministry happened working with youth, working with teenagers, right? So I was doing, ministry and leadership development with teenagers, which we call youth, and doing that with young people, when I realized I was called to the ministry, and I came in the other way.
Yeah.
But it was that was what I was drawn to.
Yeah.
In Unitarian Universalism, was working with these people who were figuring things out, who were so actively engaged in this very embodied sense in becoming who they were.
Yeah. One of the reasons I knew I had to do something different, though, was because I was okay with not having the title or being recognized as a person doing ministry. Like, that was not important to me. And then by the later part of my career, I had decidedly realized I was a humanist. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't really know what that would mean as far as ministerial credentialing anyway. So I was like, I'm not sure what this would mean anyway. So I'm going to just do the work. But what became really difficult inside of the secular institutions was when you bring a ministerial fervor to your work inside of people kind of think you're doing too much, because to me it was all life and death. It was all really, really important in a way that most of the people around me were just doing their jobs. Like they're just like, I'm at work.
And you're like, something holy is calling me to this work. And they were like,
and prophetic fervor inside of the secular institution, is, it's a thing. So, so part of it was recognizing that, I would talk about this in my dissertation, spending several years inside of Blue, as a member, as a beloved, and that sitting in that sort of Black sacred space of worship and community, it gave me a space of rest and recovery and restoration, so that by 2022, my imagination was free enough to reimagine that I could find a space where I could bring my whole self to ministry explicitly, and not sort of in some subversive roundabout way. Worship matters. Yeah, it really matters, and I'm glad that we never know how these journeys are gonna take us, but as a famous person once said, I wouldn't take nothing from a journey now. It didn't always make sense, and it didn't always feel good. It wasn't always pretty, but Unitarian Universalism has helped me. I was just telling a good friend of mine, I don't think I've ever been as intimate with the concept of faith as I have been in the last 5 years of my life. I thought I understood faith. I preached it. I taught it, all of that stuff. But
and you grew up in a tradition where that was a word.
That's a thing. Yeah.
It's funny to me that it was in a tradition that our Unitarian Universalist tradition has the unfortunate reality of sometimes being allergic to religious language. And so it was in this environment that you actually came to embrace the concept of faith.
Well, I thought I had embraced it, but I don't think I understood it in a very embodied way. Of that means not just accepting mystery, but learning to reach toward the mystery, to reach toward the unknowing, the liminal, again, people kept asking me, what are you going to do once you graduate? And my answer still is, I don't know. Like, all I know is after I left my job, I knew that I was supposed to go back to seminary and get this degree. And so I just have focused on that. And it was like, I don't know what's beyond that. Like, it's just, I'm just going to move forward in the thing that I feel deep in my bones that I'm supposed to do. And that requires a kind of faith that, and maybe it's just I'm older now and I can understand, this concept of divine mystery, not as something to avoid, but like there is something beautiful in that mystery, in that darkness, that unknowing, that requires you to get real clear about your truths, about who you are authentically. And I think being in the space of Unitarian Universalism has been a big part of that for me.
Oh, what a nice place to end our conversation today.
Wow.
And I will say, for those of you watching or listening to our podcast, that if you or someone you know has pockets deep enough to help CLF permanently employ the Reverend Dante Hilliard, go to our website, clfuu.org, and let us know that. Because we would love, we would love it. Here at CLF, it just requires more cheddar than we have access to.
Well, but Reverend Michael knows they're not getting rid of me anyway. They're not getting rid of me one way or the other. I don't know what that all means.
Nor are we seeking to. Which is good. It's good that these things mesh in reality. So we will see you next week when we should have a full complement of hosts along with Daniela. Oh goodness, Daniela, the knitting cult lady, internet superstar, who is joining us because DC Fortune, co-host of The View, has no qualms about reaching out to internet superstars and inviting them on, and they say yes because they're internet superstars. So they spend another hour on the internet discussing something. We're all gonna have fun. Deep empty pockets. I mean the deep full pockets, Nicole. We love you and we want you here, and it's more important to us that you're here than that your pockets have stuff in them. And hopefully one day they will have enough in them to make your life happen. So have a great week, y'all.
Have a good week, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to everyone who gives generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible.
Visit clfuu.org/give to make a contribution.
We hope you will join us next week for another episode of the Voices of Unity.